Hello, I'm Josh Ondeke from Nairobi, and we welcome our viewers from Kenya and around the world. This is Newslink, a program that takes a global and exclusive look at issues affecting public attitudes in business, politics, sports, arts and culture. But first, here are the stories making headlines. Manuel Pellegrini confirmed as West Ham manager on a €5 million deal per year, as ex-Manchester United and Real Madrid boss vows to bring in 4 or 5 new signings and play football that will delight the fans. The Chilean replaces David Moyes after the Scottish left at the end of the season following escape from relegation. Elsewhere, Unai Emery has been confirmed as the Arsenal manager. The Spaniard has replaced Arsene Wenger, who ended his 22-year-old spell in charge at the Emirates. Emery is available after he left PSG, with the club electing against giving him a third year in charge. And I'm sure Arsenal fans will be delighted with the announcement. And in other news, with just 20 days to kick off of the 2018 FIFA World Cup, squads are set to assemble in Russia as African representative Egypt and Nigeria name final squads. Both the teams have big names and relatively unknown players in the race to catch the flight to Russia. The other African candidates are Senegal, Morocco and Tunisia, with FIFA set to publish the final list by June 4th. The FIFA World Cup will be held for the 88th time in Russia, and during this year's competition, Africa will be represented by Nigeria, Egypt, Senegal, Morocco and Tunisia. But how far will teams reach during this year's competition, as most Africans always are in favor of European sides? Irene Watitu takes a look at what really defines the fate of football in Kenya and Africa at large. This is Newslink on Reds TV, and keep the conversation going. Remember, you can tweet me at Ondeke, and our text line is 21411. And on Twitter, I see Brenda Nyongesa at Brenda_Nyongesa is saying, issues with management has been a focal point of poor development in African sports, not only in football. She continues saying, personally, I don't see African teams going far past group stages in 2018 FIFA World Cup. At Ondeke is my Twitter handle. Keep the conversation going. We'll be back in a short while.
Three in the box waiting for the cross, and it was Bale! Oh, what about that? What about that from Gareth Bale?
Football, as we know it, is the world's best watched game. Football has its own beauty as it unites communities, races, societies, and even continents in events such as the FIFA World Cup.
Marcelo! A nightmare start for the host nation!
The famous game, sadly, can have its fallout. This is soccer practiced at Daystar University and not exactly a thing of beauty to watch, as teams do not even have training uniforms. The Falcons represent just many Kenyan football clubs faced with issues including poor training grounds, poor facilities, with most African talent playing football outside their own countries.
Blind. Oh dear, when things are going bad, they go very bad, Michael Olunga!
But the real question is, what really defines the environment of struggling football industry in Kenya and Africa at large?
So African football, of course, has a lot of challenges, starting with management. I think that's the biggest challenge. You elect people into offices and then they start joking around, and playing around with cash. You won't pay sportsmen what they deserve. You won't build stadiums, unlike what we see in Europe.
Critics say African football is not led by the best candidates for the job, but by those who have the means to disburse the largest amounts of cash.
African football is facing a major problem. Most players don't actually succeed because there is lack of enough facilities like our football pitch here. There's no coaches. There's usually a lot of corruption in football.
The fact that football has the resources of large corporations at its disposal, in Africa, little effort is made by the management body and government to make it an ideal vehicle for those who have compassion about enriching themselves with the game.
People who have really dedicated themselves to invest in sports, because you realize in Kenya, people think of other businesses like maybe starting up movie company, starting up a real estate company, but they forget that such small things like football or sports are the things that maybe are good to invest in.
Many Kenyans are worried about which player will be sold or bought coming next season in English Premier League, La Liga or Bundesliga. Instead, the focus should be on the Kenyan soccer.
Ourselves, we don't support our own footballers, our own sportsmen. How many times will you see people go to Kasarani to watch a game? Apart from the Hull City match, that is because there are whites in the country. How many people will you see people go out there, maybe, leave alone major sporting events, charity events, Ndakaini Marathon? How many people will be there, not even participating, just watching? Because this is where this talent starts.
The change in Kenyan football and Africa begins with you. For SportsLink, I am Irene Waitito.
This is Newslink on Reds TV. Remember, you can tweet me at Ondeke, and the hashtag to use is African FIFA World Cup. And right now, I'm joined by Newslink senior reporter Irene Waitito. Irene, what's happening in the ground?
Well, Joshua, the situation on the ground, as you can see, players are busy training. They're very hardworking throughout this week. They have been on the field and they are very optimistic about the game, but the only challenge that they seem to be facing is lack of infrastructure, lack of facilities to help them train further for the game.
And in your own opinion, Irene, what do you think can be done to improve African football?
Well, Joshua, I could say since football is a loved game here in Africa, the media should give more importance to local soccer as much as it is given to the international. This will get the players to be boosted up and the game will have a better audience, will have better chances of improving.
And how can corruption be dealt with in African football?
For African football to develop, Joshua, when it comes to management, I think better coaches should be put in place. I think the players should know what they want in the long run, and this will in turn help them choose better coaches who can provide training and facilities for these players and also encouragement to the players. The management should be there for the players. They should be there for every game. They should support the players in anything that they lack. So good management needs to have good coaches and good leadership, Joshua.
Irene Waitito, thank you very much for joining us on Newslink. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Joshua.
This is Newslink. I'm Josh Ondeke. We'll be back in a few minutes. (214-1111) is the text line. Remember, you can also join the conversation on our social media at Twitter at Ondeke, and the hashtag to use is African FIFA World Cup. And right now I see the Brian at Avatar myself is saying challenges affecting African football include poor management and the media doesn't give sufficient coverage to African football as compared to Europe. This is Newslink and I'm Joshua Ondeke. Keep the conversation going. The hashtag to use is African FIFA World Cup. The text line is 21411. Social media opinions count. Now we are being joined by Stephen Juguna, sports analyst at Bumper Sport TV. And if Mr. Steve, lack of interest from African in events such as FIFA World Cup in favor of European teams, how has this affected sports development in Africa?
Well, what I can say is that not everybody supports European teams, but it's undisputable that the most widely watched football across Africa is actually not African football. That's why I think that we should try and push more African leagues, more African football. But if you look at what people watch most, is the English Premier League, followed by the Spanish La Liga.
Yes.
So obviously, as fans, you can't really blame them because they identify more with La Liga players, they identify more with EPL players, whereas you see the players who watch a lot of African football end up supporting African teams at the World Cup.
And Steve, how does leadership and management influence sports development here in Kenya?
Well, poor leadership everywhere affects everything, but I think in Africa it's a combination of not poor leadership as such, because we have there are countries with good leaders, good work ethic. If you look at Northern Africa, Morocco, Egypt, Tunisia, they have stable infrastructure, they have very good, well-performing teams. Even Morocco have bid for the 2026 World Cup. But look at some regions of African football. Yes, it's true that the leadership gap is wanting. Let's take an example of our own country here, Kenya. We don't have, at the moment, we don't have a stadium fit to host an international game. But we are supposed to host Ghana in September.
Stephen Jugan, always a pleasure to have you on Newslink. We'll be back in a short while. And now I'm joined by Boniface Mutuku, head coach Falcons men. And coach, where does the fans lie? Do we blame the fans for the lack of development of African football?
We cannot put the blame on the fans, for really, because if you look at the growth of football, you come, fans go to the pitch to enjoy the game. Look at our investment. What have we invested as a country for football? Nothing. So that's our problem number one.
And this one a little bit touches of Kenyan Premier League. We have instances where sponsors leave the Premiership and players go without pay. The question which most people ask, where is the problem?
I think the most important thing is leadership, because if you look at our leadership, is very wanting. Like, we have the KPL, we have the federation. Everybody wants to run the league. There's that tussle between the federation and KPL. And KPL is a body. Federation is mandated to run the football in the country. Yeah.
Coach Boniface, always a pleasure to have you on Newslink.
Thank you.
This is Newslink on Reds TV. Keep the conversation going. The hashtag to use is African FIFA World Cup. The text line is 21411. Social media opinions count. Now I'm joined by Mr. Maurice Masiga, sports coordinator at Daystar University. Mr. Maurice, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
And let's just kick it off. Major factors including infrastructure, stadiums have really affected sports development in Africa, especially football. From your docket in sports management, do you share the same sentiments?
Leadership is very key in the management of sport and recreation. You need to have gone to school. You need to have experience in the management of sport and recreation. Poor management is very likely a result of corruption and improper development towards the job.
Mr. Masiga, sports management has been criticized for the downfall of sports development. What's your perspective on that?
Sport will benefit from good infrastructure. If you have poor infrastructure, you're not going to go very far. In Kenya and in Africa in general, you only find a few places where you have proper infrastructure. Otherwise, infrastructure affects the way you display your skills, the way you grow sport from rudimentary to high skills.
Mr. Maurice Masiga, always a pleasure to have you on Newslink.
You're welcome. All right.
This is Newslink on Reds TV. Remember, our text line is 21411. And I see Komi is saying that African football is not at downfall. Remember a few years ago, South Africa was able to host FIFA World Cup. Keep the conversation going on our social media platforms, on Twitter at Ondeke and Facebook at Ondeke. Remember, our text line is 21411. And just to wrap it off, I think the government should create enough mitigation rules to ensure that our young youth who are playing football have the enough scope or have the enough space to play their football well. There need to be a lot of mitigation, including good management and also provision of training equipments which these people need or which players need in the pitch to ensure that they play good football. So to ensure that African football go to a next level, it starts with Kenyans as to support our own teams, but also the government should come in. Keep the conversation going at Ondeke on Twitter and Facebook. Our text line is 214411. Remember to subscribe, comment and like on this YouTube channel. Till next time, I am Ondeke. God bless.